Good morning. My name is James Danger, and I'd like to discuss with you 3 articles which have recently published on or about the 28th of July, which I think may be of value both to IVF clients and to IVF clinic staff. Just to act as a disclaimer, I have a PhD in clinical embryology, and I've been working in IVF and as an embryologist for more than 50 years. The videos I'm making for my Fertile channel is an attempt to bridge the gap between information you may need for your fertility treatment and the most recent publications available to your clinic staff. I'm not a medical person, and this information is not medical advice, but it may help you in asking questions about your treatment with your doctor. Hope it helps. Finally, I'm going to allocate this page to all future videos for supporters of IVF Daily. If you want to promote your company or clinic or product, this day may just be the place for you to consider. However, in supporting FertAid's IVF Daily channel, you are supporting an IVF client becoming an informed IVF client. You can click subscribe or become a sponsor, or just make a donation to help others on their fertility journey. The 3 articles I'm wishing to review today are an oocyte-mediated repair of sperm DNA fragmentation. This was published in Reproductive Biomedicine Online. It's a review and open access. The second, also published in Reproductive Biomedicine Online, also a review and also open access, looks at infertility duration, its aetiologies, parental factors, and assisted reproductive technologies on the risk of congenital abnormalities or anomalies. And the third article, published in Human Reproduction, looks at the impact of repeated biopsy and vitrification on euploid blastocyst transfers. That's also free. So the first paper, looking at oocyte-mediated repair of sperm DNA fragmentation. These findings indicate that oocyte quality, which diminishes with age, significantly impacts the efficacy of DNA repair processes, thereby influencing embryo viability and pregnancy success. While younger oocytes can partially compensate for sperm DNA fragmentation, aging oocytes show reduced repair capacity, contributing to poor reproductive outcomes. These insights emphasize the need for novel reproductive strategies aimed at enhancing oocyte quality and its ability to carry out repair efficiently. So my comments on this paper is: 1, it's open access and it's available to all staff. It's an excellent review on DNA repair, and I believe it's a must read for all laboratory staff. But as you know, spermatozoa, once the sperm is being compressed, have limited DNA repairability, and it depends upon the oocyte for this function during fertilization. While these mechanisms may be efficient, they are critically limited by their storage dependency on oocyte quality. There are several mechanisms to repair sperm DNA that are largely found only at the oocyte stage or early fertilization stage. It has been shown that sperm DNA fragmentation can disrupt chromosomal reorganization in the paternal pronucleus, causing delays in the embryo's first DNA replication, highlighting the critical impact of DNA fragmentation on these early stages of embryo development. Most studies have demonstrated a statistically significant association between elevated levels of DNA fragmentation in sperm and delayed morphokinetic parameters, as well as suboptimal embryo development in humans. As the repair activity of sperm DNA fragmentation in the early embryo is of maternal origin, oocyte quality plays a key role. Studies have shown that maternal transcripts stored in the oocyte decrease with advanced age, resulting in reduced efficacy in the oocyte's repair mechanisms. When this mechanism is impaired, the sperm DNA fragmentation remains unrepaired, leading to delayed embryo development and the inheritance of mutation by the offspring. The second paper, also published in Reproductive Biomedicine Online, also is open access and also is a must-read for all staff and particularly clients, looks at the risk of congenital abnormalities associated with people having IVF. And their summary indicates that there is a increased risk for genital abnormalities born to individuals with infertility and those who conceived using ART. The risk of CAs in the context of ART is complex due to the presence of numerous confounding factors, some of which may be linked to the paternal and parental characteristics. Notably, some types of CAs, such as congenital heart defects, genitourinary abnormalities, and genetic disorders, are more frequently reported in association with ART. And at this point, one needs to make a comment that the early studies looking at congenital abnormalities were only looking at people who were having IVF because they were infertile. But over the last 15 to 20 years, more and more people are accessing this technology, single women, lesbian couples, oocyte storage, fertility preservation, and other couples accessing genetic analysis of embryos that are not infertile. Therefore, you need to be able to break up the risk of genital abnormalities between people that are infertile and the treatment itself. So, in conclusion, the current literature suggests an increased risk, albeit small, of congenital abnormalities associated with ART. This underscores the need for further research to elucidate the underlying mechanisms and to inform clinical strategies aimed at reducing these risks. Basically, it's saying we just need to understand where the risks are coming from. Now, the reason I've included this paper is that they've listed a whole possible topics that may be associated with congenital abnormality. I have to make a declaration here that this is not my field of expertise, and I have no expertise in actually providing a review. But what I am doing is reproducing some of their summary statements, which I find to be particularly informative. So the study shows that conception via IVF appears to be associated with an 18 to 20% increased risk of CAs compared with spontaneous conceptions. The literature supports an increased risk of congenital abnormalities associated with ICSIs compared to spontaneous conceptions, and I think this relates to male infertility. Current evidence suggests that the use of ejaculated epididymal or testicular sperm in ICSI does not influence the risk of CAs. The literature also supports that prolonged embryo culture and blastocyst stage transfers are not associated with the risk compared to cleavage stage transfers. So that's good. The data on the risk of CAs associated with IVF culture remains scarce, and there is inconclusive data regarding the relationship between embryo quality and the risk of congenital abnormalities. It doesn't mean there isn't, it's just that it's very rare. The evidence also indicates that frozen embryo transfers are not associated with an increased risk of genital abnormalities compared to fresh transfers, and the PGD does not also increase the risk. The data does indicates there is no increased risk associated with in vitro maturation, but the data is limited, and the use of donor eggs does not appear to increase the risk compared to autologous oocytes and spontaneous conceptions. The evidence suggests that the use of donor sperm is not associated with the risk, and excluding chromosomal anomalies, the literature suggests a decreased risk of congenital abnormalities with increasing maternal age in the context of ART, which I find rather interesting. The literature does not provide any definitive conclusions about congenital abnormality risk according to specific female etiologies such as tubal blockages or endometriosis. However, the literature does suggest that increasing maternal age is associated with a higher risk of congenital abnormalities, and the data does suggest the risk increases, that an increased risk of genetic imprinting disorders in offspring conceived through ART, potentially due to epigenetic modifications induced by gamete and embryo manipulations or altered hormonal environments during early development. I think what they're saying is that most of the congenital abnormalities that they're recording do have an epigenetic basis to them, as opposed to a technical basis. And this is where the concern should be. This article is definitely worth reading, particularly to give you confidence that many of our activities in IVF are not associated with CAs. And lastly, just a small review of a paper published in Human Reproduction looking at the impact of repeated biopsies and vitrification. See the reference down here. And the conclusion they drew, which is what published in the paper, is that this was part of an Extra Journal Club meeting. It provides clear evidence that double vitrification, whether with single or double biopsies, significantly reduces clinical pregnancies and live birth rates compared to standard single vitrification. Despite unchanged post-warming survival, repeated manipulations likely cause sublethal damage that impairs development potential. Clinicians should counsel patients on these risks before considering rebiopsy or double vitrification. Preventative methods or measures such as improving biopsy quality, reducing inconclusive PGA rates, and maintaining strict lab standards are essential. Future prospective studies with standardised protocols and long-term outcomes are needed to guide best practice. Reducing embryo handling always remains the key to optimising ART success. So just in summary, the vitrification is now a cornerstone of ART management, and it facilitates the biopsy of the blastocyst stage and allows for storage of surplus embryos. PGT for aneuploidy is widely used to identify euploidy embryos, and vitrification is the associated treatment associated with biopsy. Some embryos may require rebiopsy due to inconclusive results and subsequent revitrification, often referred to as double biopsy and double vitrification. In other cases, some laboratories vitrify all the blastocysts before biopsy, generating single biopsy and double vitrification scenarios. One critical study has found evidence that repeated vitrification, regardless of biopsy frequency, was associated with significantly lower clinical pregnancy rates and live birth rates. Therefore, clinics that practice double vitrification need to balance out the need to know the ploidy status of an embryo to the risk of failure to implant or miscarriage. The Journal Club discussion concluded that a critical gap of knowledge remains concerning the long-term health of children born during double blastocyst vitrification. I hope these articles are of value to you. I hope you've enjoyed them, even though I'm probably a bit boring. And if you like more information, please tell other clients about this service and please subscribe. Thank you.